Hi, and welcome to another video in this series about AI in C Sharp. Today we're going to look at Microsoft extensions.ai versus semantic kernel, because if you have followed the news for the last 6 months, there has been something called Microsoft extensions.ai, and Microsoft have been quite poor at explaining what it is. Is it a replacement for semantic kernel? What is it? What can it do? What can't it do? And so on. So in this video, I'm going to try and explain what I've seen over the 6 months it's now have been, and what it's all about, what's up, what's down, what's recommended, and so on. Just so we are clear, Microsoft extensions.ai is a long way to talk. So we're calling it MEAI, which is also what Microsoft do it internally. And to keep it short, we call semantic kernel for SK. So when I say SK, I mean semantic kernel, and when I say MEAI, I mean Microsoft extensions AI. Also, there will not really be any code today, because this is just the explanation about it, not how you use Microsoft extensions AI. I will get to the last slide why I think that's not needed. But if you want to go to my AI samples, I have code showing how to use Microsoft extensions AI without ever touching the semantic kernel. So if you want to see how you actually do it, you can go there and do it. But let's start with a little comparison and then an analogy. So everything I'm talking about here is, of course, my interpretation of everything. As I mentioned, Microsoft has been very poor at communicating exactly what this is. They are getting better and better due to the various complaints they have gotten about that confusion. But it's still a bit unclear to many people. So, well, there is a purpose for each of these two. And the purpose for Microsoft Extensions AI is to be the low-level building blocks of AI in C#, while semantic kernel is to have a more higher level abstraction for business productivity. So who is it for? MEAI is more for the LLM providers, so they can build integrations so C# can use it. And then SK will go in and do more business and advanced use cases on top of all this. Microsoft is the one who both make it, but MEAI is made by the .NET team, while SK is made by an internal dedicated team for semantic kernel inside Microsoft. MEAI is for C# only, while SK actually also can work with Python and Java. In this case, we don't care. We're talking about C#, but they actually have multiple levels. C# is the most advanced at the moment among the three, then Python, and Java is lagging behind. As you can see here, the semantic kernel have been around for longer, while it's only when the real hype started that MEAI came along. It also releases much faster. Semantic kernel, they release 1 or 2 times every week actually, while this is on a slower cadence with 1 to 2 times every month. In terms of features, MEAI have chat and embeddings, while semantic kernel have some higher level things like chat, embeddings in terms of vector stores, agents, process framework, and all the other things that we have talked over on the previous videos. But a better way to explain this than just a comparison is perhaps an analogy. So in the AI space, as I see it, then Microsoft's extension.ai is the .NET framework. It's the classes, it's the string, it's the integer, it's the low-level building blocks that is there. And that's good, and that's very important, of course. But in the AI space, I see semantic kernel as NuGet. So NuGet is nothing without .NET, but with NuGet you get a lot of things. So technically you could build everything in .NET without NuGet, but you will just end up writing much more code. So an entire agent system, an entire process framework, an entire vector store implementation. Yes, technically, Microsoft Extension AI have all the building blocks for you to do it, but you need to just build a lot more. So, like in normal business development, you of course use NuGet packages. So in AI space, it makes sense to use semantic kernel on top of Microsoft Extensions AI. And I'll get to why I mean on top of. Because if we look at the timeline, and I have two timelines, I have a friendly timeline and a bit more hostile timeline, because it's a bit unclear how these two teams have worked together. But let's take the friendly approach. So back in the day, when nobody else really was talking so much about AI, there was a small team internally at Microsoft that says AI is cool. We should have something in .NET to leverage it, because everything was happening in Python back then. But what they noticed was there was not really anything to build upon in .NET. They had the classes, strings, dates, and so on, but there was nothing more high level to work with. So they built a chat completion. They built embeddings. They built every single little thing that required to be, and they put it into their NuGet package for semantic kernel, and a lot of NuGet packages. You find 10, 15 of them for semantic kernel with all kinds of components, connectors, vector stores, and so on. Then Microsoft Extension AI came along, because now we were over the hype cycle, all depending on how you see the hype cycle. But AI was actually going places, and Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, threatened, let's just use the word, everyone that they should work on something AI or they were not welcomed in Microsoft. So the team at .NET saw that they needed to do something, and as they are a framework, they would of course want to build some framework parts of it. So they built the framework, they built the low-level parts of, so we not just only have a string, but a chat client is actually a thing now, and embedding is actually a thing now. And in this friendly interpretation, now the semantic kernel can use all the things that they didn't have back here. And they can now transition to using all these things, so they do not need to own all the low-level stuff by themselves, but they can focus on what they're good at, the higher level stuff. If we take a hostile interpretation of this, it starts the same. AI is cool. There was nothing to build on. Microsoft .NET team saw that they needed to do something with AI. And one could say then that the .NET team could just take exactly what semantic kernel team had done, because they had already done it. But I think the Microsoft external AI extensions AI team saw it as a bit messy. They had a bunch of long, odd names, and there was too much baggage in that thing. There were so many dependencies, so many things, and .NET team, they normally want to keep it clean. They know to. So in a hostile situation, I don't know if that was her, but they were definitely bigger, more prominent names inside the organization, so they could force themselves to actually be able to own the lower level interpretation despite another team who had already built such a thing. And again, the hostile interpretation, I think the semantic kernel team felt threatened that they might not survive if they didn't embrace Microsoft Extension AI, and then focus on the higher level abstractions to keep themselves relevant. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle of these two, and I actually think it's closer to the friendly interpretation, because all the things that were built here was in collaboration. The two teams are working together on what is going on in the AI space, and I think long term the semantic kernel is happy to not have all this low level stuff. But of course, there's also pride in owning the stack and so on. So again, somewhere in the middle of these two things, two teams saying not invented here, and but now working together. And I actually think it's a good thing, because if we go to my opinions and recommendations about all this, and the parting words for me here is that building Microsoft Extensions AI was smart to do by the .NET team, because they have a bigger leverage than just a small team inside Microsoft that makes a NuGet package called semantic kernel. So, for example, whenever a LLM model comes along, it is a good thing to be something that can be used by the Microsoft Extension AI. While if it was, hey, if it's just a small NuGet package that's a few people use, but .NET have more leverage overall. So I think it was the smart thing to do. And we are seeing that the different models are slowly building, so they are compatible with Microsoft Extensions AI, just like whenever they needed to be compatible with .NET in general. As mentioned before, this was very, very poorly communicated. There was just this announcement that said now there's this thing. We should probably have understood it by it was this namespace, and it wasn't .microsoft.ai or something, but that it is this lower level extensions part, just like dependency is in Microsoft extension, the dependency injection. But very, very poorly communicated, slowly getting along, in my opinion, and from all the different sources, slowly understanding that it makes sense what is going on right now. And to be honest, Microsoft Extension AI are better at naming things. They have shorter names, they are more simple names, they are more desirable names. So overall, we are getting a simpler understanding of things compared to what in the old days that the semantic kernel team gave us names, but couldn't really change because they were they didn't want to break backwards compatibility. So 6 months more experience with AI surely gave them a good advantage to give better names, and being the .NET team where you're really stuck with everything you do, it's probably been reasoned over a lot compared to just building it when it was new and cool. Short term, this will give us a bit of a mess, because what is happening right now is that semantic kernel team is slowly getting rid of all their underlying bits and building them on top of Microsoft Extension AI. So one could argue that semantic kernel is actually the biggest user of Microsoft Extension AI. And that means that there's multiple classes, multiple objects that can do the same, but you shouldn't really use. And some of them will be marked as obsolete, but there will be a time where they can't really be removed until everyone has migrated away from the old legacy parts. An example, among others, is MEAI call it a chat message, while the semantic kernel called it a chat message content. Longer name doesn't really matter if it is. But right now you can use both in semantic kernel because the adoption have begun. But over time you should of course not use chat message contents. Long term that should go away. But right now, if you sit in Visual Studio and write chat message, you get both. You get confused. It's messy, but that's just the way it is with code and it evolving. Long term, if the teams stay the same, I think we can get a better offering for semantic kernel. They will have more time to actually do what they're really good at, the high level abstractions, and they can say, okay, if embeddings need something new, Extensions AI will take care of that, and they just need to leverage that. They don't need to reinvent the wheel and build up foundational things that will come from the other team. So 2 teams divide and conquer for the shared load. So I think it's again, if the teams stay the same, all is all up in the air with the various goings on in AI and stuff. But overall, long term, I think it's a good thing that this is happening. And my final remark is, I would recommend that you do not bother with Microsoft Extension AI and start directly in semantic kernel. And the reason for that is normally when you go to a more advanced and higher abstraction level, you get a steeper learning curve. But trying both of these, I feel like the learning curve for both of them are roughly the same of the 2 frameworks. But you can get much more out of semantic kernel long term with building agents on top and so on. So why, again, with my analogy, why stay in the .NET framework when you have the option to go with NuGet packages? So again, had it been a higher learning curve, or if you just need to make a hello world, you might go with Extension AI, but why bother with a slightly different syntax in the short term when you can just go with semantic kernel? So that is my opinion. Again, no code today, but if you want to see semantic kernel and Microsoft Extension AI, go to my samples repo, and you can see the different codes on how to do a chat message loop, vector, and so on in Microsoft Extension AI. So done. Thank you. See you on the next one.